Welcome back to In Session, a deep dive into healthcare policy we're bringing to you every week. I'm Brian Bernal of the South Carolina Hospital Association, and here's the rundown from week 12 at the State House. This is, for all argument's sake, the eye of the hurricane. We've seen a lot of activity from both chambers over the last several weeks. Next week, the House will be in recess on furlough. The Senate will be meeting in perfunctory session while the committees do some work, primarily their Senate Finance Committee, working on the state budget. And then activity will really ramp up as we lean into the last 6 weeks of session, the back stretch. We've got about 15 legislative days, about 12 where the chambers will be actively meeting, debating legislation. So with that, let's talk about the budget. The BEA met last week to look at the revenue forecasts on income tax revenue, sales tax revenue. And right now, we're not trending any better than we were back in November. The estimate is the same. How does that impact us and how does that impact hospitals? Well, it's getting harder and harder to see a future in which the Medicaid budget is fully funded without some difficult decisions by the Senate Finance Committee. So we're going to be pushing out a grassroots campaign to ask you to engage with your senator to advocate for fully funding the Medicaid budget. Look for that in your inboxes next week and please participate. Your engagement really helps us move the needle. We need that Medicaid budget request fully funded to ensure access for beneficiaries of the Medicaid program and constituents and citizens across the state. A little update on the HALO Act. We made a lot of progress last week. So grateful for Senator Hembry and others supporting an amendment to include all healthcare workers inside hospitals and healthcare facilities. But a little snag with some contesting of parental rights concerns, right? We are not advocating to get in the middle of parental rights decisions between a parent, a provider, and what's best for their child. But at the end of the day, we are advocating to protect our healthcare workers from being assaulted when they're providing life-saving care. And walking that fine line is important for us and the senators. So we're grateful for their concern. We're working with them on some compromise language and hopeful that we can get that House bill that's so close to the finish line to the governor's desk in the coming weeks. Medical malpractice bill is still waiting hearing in Senate Judiciary. Really anticipate there being a few weeks before they get to that point. Our primary concern right now is the increase in the caps. The House passed version is significantly higher than what the Senate passed. And so there are some concerns by our hospital members and the senators as to whether or not those caps are too high. And we'll be having those conversations to see if we can get closer to a more reasonable increase on behalf of our hospitals. The legislature no longer has a crossover date. What is a crossover date? A point in time in which House bills must make it to the Senate or the Senate bills must make it to the House in order for those bodies to take up those respective bills. While they don't have that date on the calendar anymore, maybe they should, you'll see the House focus on Senate bills and the Senate focus on House bills. Fortunately for us, our hallway bed legislation and our REH, our rural emergency hospital designation legislation, has made that crossover, although informal and no longer in statute. And so we're grateful for the work of both chambers and look for those being signed into law. You probably saw just this week, the Medicaid agency released some news on the Rural Health Transformation Fund and the application process. They held a webinar last week. They'll be working with hospitals and other healthcare providers as that application window is open until June 1st. Encourage all of you to look at the DHHS website and for all the information, application guidance. And if you hospital members have questions, let us know. We'll be compiling those questions and hopeful that we can facilitate a Q&A with the agency and for all of you before that window closes. Huge shout out and thank you to both ANMED and Novant for their presence at the State House this week. Again, two hospital systems advocating on behalf of hospital interests, healthcare policy, sound healthcare policy, and senators paying attention, House members paying attention. So thanks to those members. You can take a break from me and our team. We won't have an in-session video next week as the House will be out and the Senate will be focused on budget. And we won't have a hospital at the State House, but we look forward to seeing the cloud the week of the 14th. That's all from us, week 12, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Thanks.